I call on Government Order of the Day, number 1.
Health and Safety Reform Bill, second reading.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Health and Safety Reform Bill be now read a second time. This bill represents the biggest reform in health and safety in more than 20 years and is central to the government's ongoing commitment to improving New Zealand's health and safety at work. It provides a balanced framework for health and safety in the workplace that better reflects modern working arrangements. It amends other acts to ensure New Zealand has a consistent and robust health and safety regulatory system. It drives better health and safety outcomes that will benefit business efficiency and productivity. I want to thank the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee for its hard work and consideration of the bill. Indeed, I need to thank 2 committees as consideration of the bill spanned the 2014 general election. Current Chair Jonathan Young wisely sought to rehear submissions to ensure his committee was well versed in the issues. I thank him for his calm and effective leadership and to all parliamentary colleagues who worked on the bill. Thanks also to those who submitted on the bill. The committee has recommended that the bill proceed with a number of amendments, which I fully support. Mr. Speaker, since assuming responsibility for health and safety reform, I've read and listened to many experts on health and safety, both here and in other jurisdictions with who we compare and who have much better safety records than New Zealand. Their message is consistent and unequivocal. In order to reduce death and injury in the workplace, we must focus on the industries and activities with the highest risk. The changes recommended by the committee do just that, and I want to briefly outline those changes. But first, I should restate to the House an important reason for the changes, apart from the obvious need to improve health and safety. Workplaces and even the nature of work has changed. A generation ago, when the Health and Safety and Employment Act was passed, workplaces generally had a single employer employing all staff. Now, in construction, healthcare, forestry and so on, there are multiple organisations, all working together or in close proximity. Under the bill, those entities, known as persons conducting a business or undertaking, PCBUs, must do what is reasonably practicable to keep its workers and others affected by its work safe and healthy. In practice, duties can overlap, but this does not mean or require duplication of effort. Having to work together to meet health and safety duties is not new, but the bill makes it clear that PCBUs must cooperate in such situations. Attention is focused on what each PCBU is able to influence and control, ensuring they take action that is reasonable and proportionate to the risks. PCBUs are best placed to have wide-reaching influence on achieving collaborative efforts towards health and safety throughout and between businesses. Collaborative approaches will not only act to improve health and safety, but have high potential to drive improvements in productivity. Separate from the PCBU's duties, the bill also introduces a duty on officers. Officers must exercise due diligence by taking reasonable steps to ensure their PCBU complies with its duties and obligations. Unlike the current law, officers cannot be made liable for their PCBU's failure. Rather, officers are only liable where they fail to perform their own due diligence duty. Who is an officer under the bill was considered to be ambiguous. The definition focused not on the person's role in the organisation, but on whether they made substantive decisions about the business. While holding those specific positions, such as company directors, will always be considered an officer, the committee has made changes to make it clear officers will only be those who have a very senior governance role that allows them to exercise significant influence over the management of the business. This is appropriate. It's those senior leaders that have the real ability to influence the health and safety direction of an organisation and ensure the PCBU proactively manages and addresses health and safety in how it operates its business. I intend to propose a further change to clarify that the extent of an officer's duty will take into account the nature of their role and the nature of their responsibilities in the business. This will mean that the officer's role in and degree of influence over the business will be taken into account in what they are expected to do. Submitters considered that the bill's failure to recognise any distinction between the work of regular and casual volunteers failed to reflect the reality of volunteering in New Zealand. The committee agreed, which is why they have proposed that the coverage of volunteers remain the same as it is under the current law. As under current law, where any volunteer is undertaking certain voluntary work activities, they will not be treated as workers under the bill. This includes participating in fundraising activities or assisting with sport or recreation for schools or clubs. Community purpose volunteer associations that do not employ anyone will continue to be excluded as PCBUs under the bill. This ensures volunteering will not be affected and recognises the significant contribution volunteers make to our communities. Following the recommendations of the Independent Task Force on Workplace Health and Safety, worker engagement and participation is strengthened under the bill. All PCBUs must engage with workers on health and safety matters that affect them and have ongoing practices that allow workers to effectively participate in improving health and safety. That has not changed as a consequence of the committee's recommendations, and I am disappointed that some commentators have misrepresented the changes as having done that, with the unnecessary anxiety that this has created. The changes to worker participation balance the needs of workers and businesses. The bill will allow for innovative and flexible practices while simplifying compliance for small business in low-risk sectors where more formal approaches may not necessarily result in better health and safety outcomes. To this end, the committee has recommended that low-risk businesses or undertakings that have fewer than 20 workers will not be required to have formal health and safety representatives or a committee when requested. However, let me be clear, all PCBUs, including small businesses, will still have a requirement for worker engagement and participation. Small businesses in high-risk sectors will have to have formal health and safety reps if requested. A worker will have the ability to challenge whether the existing practices are effective. Whether health and safety representatives are to be elected, changes have also been made to simplify some procedural requirements, such as determining the group of workers the representative is to be elected by and represent. Current participation systems will be recognised under the new law. Existing health and safety reps will have to undertake additional training to be able to exercise their new powers to issue provisional improvement notices or direct unsafe work to cease. Changes have also been recommended by the committee to address concerns that a workplace could be considered a workplace for all time, even after work has finished, or where the PCBU does not have active control. The committee agreed that such an interpretation could have a considerable impact on the obligations of PCBUs who manage or control such workplaces and has changed the definition of a workplace to address this. Similarly, changes have been made to make it clear that PCBUs who manage or control workplaces will not owe this duty to those who are in the workplace for unlawful purposes. The duty of PCBUs who manage or control workplaces has also been amended to recognise the practical dynamics of this duty when it applies to farming situations. In such circumstances, it has been made clear that the duty of PCBUs who manage or control workplaces will extend to the buildings and structures in their surrounding areas. The farm workplace for these purposes will not include other parts of the farm when work is not being carried out there. This provides farmers with greater clarity about their obligations. Many farmers generously provide access to and through their land for recreational activities. This change will provide assurance to everyone to ensure, for example, cycleways, walking tracks and beach access through farmland is not negatively affected by unclear legislation. I also intend to propose a further change to provide certainty that the family home on a farm is excluded from the duty to manage or control the workplace. The changes recommended by the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee reflect a balanced and careful approach to health and safety. They clarify the scope and application of the bill's obligations while ensuring the appropriate level of responsibility for work health and safety is held by everyone. I commend this bill to the House.
Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Ka ranga ahau, Ian Lees-Gallagher.